Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, talked about doing shadow work. Shadow work are parts of yourself that you're not aware of that are affecting you psychologically, emotionally. They're coming out in your behavior, whether we're aware of it or not. Remember, you've got an unconscious mind, a subconscious mind, where stuff is in there, it's buried. And a lot of times, the shadow is parts of ourselves that we don't even want to acknowledge. We don't want to acknowledge that we can be controlling. We don't want to acknowledge that we can be selfish. We don't want to acknowledge some of these, maybe we can become angry or manipulative. We don't want to acknowledge that, and therefore we kind of repress those feelings and motives and whatnot, and then we carry them around and they affect us, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, and it comes out. See, that's what so often happens. How do you know how do you know what your shadow self is? Well, one key is, how do you judge other people? What do you say about others? Oh, she's so self-centered, she's always da-da-da-da. Guess what? Someone said when you're pointing a finger, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. When there's something about somebody else that deeply bothers us, that's a good indication that it's also inside of us. And that we don't even want to acknowledge it. We're not even aware of it. But it's probably there. And so it can be a signal. What do you find yourself getting upset about others and judging other people about? Perhaps this is why the great psychologist Jesus Christ said, judge not, lest you be judged. Why? Because it points to us. There's something in us that needs healing. And so when you find yourself judging other people in a certain way, being bothered by their behavior, then it can be a signal to say, okay, is there some part of me that's like that? And God, if there is, I offer that part up to you for healing. You can see yourself filled with light. You can go into prayer and meditation and offer that up and declare that it's now being healed and removed from your consciousness. You can journal about it. You can observe yourself and notice, when am I like that? It's interesting because in the presidential election, people get so upset about the candidates and they don't like something about the other one. Well, guess what? Depending on how upset you get, look at yourself. Is there a part of you like that? Gosh, I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth. That's the shadow self. The shadow knows. The shadow is working inside of us. Now, the Buddhists talk about samskaras. The samskara is all the stuff you've repressed during your lifetime, which started as kids. When you're a baby and you're hungry and you're crying and nobody's doing anything for you, or you start crying because you're hurt, because you want something, or you're afraid, and nobody's coming over to comfort you, to quiet you, or whatever, guess what? What do you do with those emotions? Little kids, what do? They don't know how to deal with those emotions. They want to play with a truck. Some other little kid wants to play with a truck, and they're like, no, I don't want. I want to play with the truck. And the parents like, let him play with the truck. Don't be selfish. That little kid doesn't know what to do with all those emotions. So what do? They suppress it, and we do that our whole life. Adults do that. Oh, don't cry. Big boys don't cry. Stop crying. Sometimes parents get rather harsh with their kids. Don't cry. Big boys don't cry. Guess what? That little boy grows up repressing sadness, repressing stuff, and then when he is older, it comes out. It's part of the shadow self. It's part of the samskara that the Buddhists call. That's been repressed. And same with anger, same with fear, same with any other emotion, same with lust, same with greed, same with any other kinds of emotions, that if you grow up and get older and you start, you repress these emotions because you've learned it's not right to feel sad. If I cry forever. I shouldn't get angry. Angry's not spiritual. I don't want to feel angry. Or we've been trained to to not acknowledge anger. You know, it's unattractive. Little girl, it's unattractive to get angry. Girls don't get angry, whatever that kind of behavior that we learn. And so those kids have been repressing, and then as adults they're repressing, and that's called a samskara. Energy, it's all energy. Emotion is energy. Anger's energy, fear's energy, love's energy, joy's energy, it's all energy. And when that energy is meant to flow freely through us, and when we repress it, we create blockages. It's like a river flowing. A river's supposed to flow freely, right? Now imagine a rock, a boulder in the river, rolls down the mountain into the river. Now what happens? The river flows around the rock, and then sticks get caught on the rock, and then junk flowing down the river gets caught on the rock. And now there's blockages. The river it has to split off, it has to go in different directions. That's what happens inside of us. These blockages create ripples in the flow of our energy. They block the flow of energy. That's why we're not always walking around in joy and happiness and love, because we got stuff blocking that flow. And all that stuff we could call the shadow, because what you don't acknowledge is sectioned off inside your consciousness. Imagine a room. I heard Michael Singer talk about this, the author of Untethered Soul. Imagine a room, and a room full of people, but you only look at the right side of the room. You don't even acknowledge the people on the left side of the room. That's what we do with our consciousness. When we ignore the blockages, we're just looking on one side of the room. Now, does that not affect, what about the people on the other side of the room? Are they not affecting the atmosphere? You bet they are. And the parts of ourselves that we're not looking at, you think it affects us? You bet it does. It sure as heck does. And in the most inappropriate times. I believe this is why you got people shooting up places, killing people in public, because they got all this repressed junk. Now, barring mental disabilities and whatnot, but part of it is they got all this repressed stuff. They're in so much pain that the only way they know how to get rid of it is to inflict pain on other people. A lot of people do that, They feel like they need other people to feel their pain, and somehow that's going to relieve their pain. See, it's all this, it's big stuff, and it's a huge part of personal development and growth. Oh, but I don't want to talk about pain. I just want to pray. I want to be in joy. I want to be in love. That's what I want to do. Well, how are you going to get there? You can't ignore the pain, can't ignore the shadow stuff. That's what's blocking your spiritual experience. You got to let that stuff flow through you. You got to let it out. You got to release it. When you release it, now you're open more to that flow of joy and love and all that good stuff. That's your spiritual essence, your spiritual nature. So how do you release it? Well, when something in the outer world triggers emotion, like anger, fear, any other kind of emotion that comes up, sadness, then instead of trying to fix the person, instead of blaming the person, instead of trying to change the environment, focus on what you're feeling and focus on relaxing your body and allowing yourself to feel what's there. When you relax your body and allow yourself to feel what's there, oh my God, I don't want to feel what's there. That's unpleasant. Well, what do you think it's like if you don't feel what's there? It's deeply unpleasant. You're just not conscious of it, but it's still there, still affecting you. Oh, but if I feel the anger and the fear, won't I attract that through the law of attraction? It's still inside of you whether you become conscious of it or not. Don't you think if it's unconscious, it's not going to attract? You bet it will. So relax your body. Allow yourself to feel whatever's there, anger, and it'll pass through you like clouds in the sky. Clouds don't stay there, they pass through. And when you relax and become aware of what you're feeling, it'll pass through you. And when it passes through you, guess what? Now you've released something. You've released that energy. You've done some deep work, really, probably the most important work. And now you're opening yourself for greater flow, for freer flow of joy and love and all that stuff that you really long for. You're like the river after the rock has been removed, after the sticks have been cleared out of the river. Now you got more speed, you got more energy, you got more flow, you got more joy, you got more love. You got all this good stuff happening inside of you. So today, be aware of what you're feeling. Be aware of what triggers you in the outer world. Instead of trying to change it, instead of cursing it and judging it, turn within and learn to relax and release and let that healing happen.